Guys, what's going on? Welcome to Serial at Midnight. My name is Heath, and in this video, we're going to shine a spotlight on Warner Archive. Who they are, what they do. We talk about Warner Archive a lot here at Serial at Midnight, but I've never done a label-specific, focused overview of who Warner Archive is. And so that's what this is going to be. I've pulled some of my favorite releases from Warner Archive, as well as some newer releases, including one that just came out a few days ago. So it'll be kind of like a world debut review for this particular release. But then at the end of the video, I'm going to give you the opportunity to win your own Warner Archive Blu-ray via a contest, courtesy of Warner Archive and your friends at Serial at Midnight. So stay tuned for that. But Warner Archive is obviously a division of Warner Brothers Home Entertainment. Warner Brothers as a studio has been around since the dawn of Hollywood. They're one of the pillars of cinema. And as a product of that age and that history, they have thousands of movies in the vaults, in the Warner Archive. And rather than just hide those away where nobody can get to them, because obviously there's going to be less demand for a 1932 Bette Davis movie than there's going to be for something more modern. So rather than keep those behind closed doors, they do a program where they, like on DVD, they burn that movie to disc, package it in professional artwork, and then you can buy it directly from them. But the Blu-rays are that's where my heart is with this stuff, because the Blu-rays are pressed discs. They're not burned on demand. They are pressed discs. They make them in batches, so you get a completely professional, fully finished product. The art, the Blu-ray cases, all that stuff. And again, they've kind of taken out the middleman. There are some authorized online sellers for Warner Archive Blu-rays, but that's been their kind of thing. Like, you don't really see Warner Archive Blu-rays out in the retail stores. It's a mail order kind of a thing, or through Amazon, through Warner Archive themselves. So with that being said, some of my favorite releases from the last year, the last couple of years, have really blown me away. And I'm going to start with Hammer Horror on Blu-ray. So The Horror of Dracula is the movie that started the 50s Dracula craze. Now, obviously, Universal movies, the resurgence in the 50s, but Hammer came along with their Frankenstein films, their Dracula films. Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing. The Dracula legacy for Hammer starts here with The Horror of Dracula, 1957, I believe. Yes, it's got Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee, and Michael Gough, who most of you guys will probably know as Alfred from the Batman movies, the Tim Burton Batman movies. Now, Michael Gough had a pretty successful horror career himself in the 50s and the 60s. And then, of course, Hammer would evolve over the next decade and a half, and then we also get from Warner Archive as well, we get Dracula AD 1972, obviously from 1972. And then a year later, we get the Satanic Rites of Dracula. And if you guys know Hammer, you know that these are a lot more... so this feels kind of tame by modern standards, but these were really pushing the envelope with the blood and the nudity, the exploitation elements to try to capture audiences. And so for so long, I've wanted these in HD. I love Hammer. Hammer's one of my favorite studios. We opened a Hammer box set here on the channel. You guys know that I love Hammer. I love that 50s, 60s, 70s horror, especially British horror. And so these come highly recommended. I also want to talk about Howard Hawks' The Thing. Howard Hawks' is The Thing. This is obviously John Carpenter remade this movie as his The Thing. The Thing is a remake of this movie. And so for a long time, this is one of those majorly influential 50s sci-fi horror, Cold War paranoia kind of a movie. Have you seen Iron Giant? This is the kind of movie that fed off of that the Iron Giant was kind of inspired by. Just like, what will fall from the skies? What is out there? Love this stuff. And for so long, we were like, will we ever have The Thing on Blu-ray in high definition? Well, we do, thanks to Warner Archive. It's the original aspect ratio, obviously HD. It is beautiful, highly recommended, and worth picking up. This is like movie history. So many people wanted this movie, and when it was finally announced, I think if you went outside and you just listened, you could hear the rejoicing of people all over the world. Movie fans all over the world just go outside and you're like, hey. Another one that I want to talk about, this is kind of an obscure one. This is kind of a cult movie. Big Wednesday. This has Jan Michael Vincent, rest in peace. It has William Catt, who you might know from The Greatest American Hero. And it has Gary Busey. It also has Robert Englund, 70s Robert Englund. I think this movie is 1978. Yeah, mid to late 70s Robert Englund. He was popping up in all kinds of stuff. The Barbra Streisand, Chris Christopherson version of A Star Is Born. Like, Robert Englund's in the background of so many movies around this time. I think he has one line here, but he's at a lot of parties. They throw a lot of... So this is a surfer movie. This is like Southern California. It starts in the early 60s, and it says it kind of starts in 1962, and then it chronicles the lives of these surfers up to 1974 through Vietnam. It's kind of like American Graffiti, but surfing. It's actually really good. It's directed by John Milius, who you guys, obviously, a very fantastic director. Anyway, I highly recommend this movie. I think this is really cool if you're into that sort of a thing. And I'm really grateful to have that on Blu-ray from Warner Archive. I want to talk about this really quick. I think I'm probably going to do a dedicated video about this. This was kind of a series. So this is The Green Slime. This is Japanese monster horror from the mid-60s, 1968. And this was kind of the culmination of a cycle that had been going on. There were some movies before this that are not on Blu-ray. They're on Warner Archive DVDs, and it's basically like the adventures of the space station and like the trouble that happens out in wild space kind of a thing. And this, obviously, if I say Japanese horror, 1968, so if you're thinking Godzilla, you're on the right track. That's what it is. It's not giant dinosaurs, though. It's like these guys. And so there's the space station being terrorized. It's literally kids in rubber suits. And it's awesome. It's so much fun. The tension. I just love that vibe. The hair, the clothes, the music. This has like this really weird but cool 1968 song. It's like green slime, green slime. That kind of, it's like you could see this guy playing Green Slime at Woodstock. Like, it's that kind of a thing. But this is cool. So I'm probably going to do a video at some point in the future about this whole series of films. But the Green Slime is obviously like the pinnacle of what those movies were doing, what they were going for. I want to talk about Gun Crazy. There's a review for this at serialatmidnight.com. And I think I talked about this in another live stream as well. But if you haven't seen Gun Crazy, go buy this immediately. Gun Crazy is a seminal film noir movie. It's John Dahl and Peggy Cummings, and he's a guy, he loves guns, she loves trouble. They're both really good at gunplay. Like, she shoots guns in like a traveling carnival. He just loves guns. He just loves them, man. And so she uses him to get what she wants. They end up going on this bank robbery, kind of inspired by Bonnie and Clyde, but probably even more tragic than Bonnie and Clyde, because the manipulation at play here, we get to see all of it. It's a fascinating movie, and this is a movie that is taught in film classes for its importance. It has a commentary by author, film noir specialist Glenn Erickson, but it has a documentary called Film Noir, Bringing Darkness to Light. And it is, I feel fairly confident saying that. I'm thinking about this. Do I want to say this? I think I do. It is the best documentary I've ever seen about film noir. What is film noir? What does film noir achieve? What defines film noir? All these questions, hard to answer, are addressed in this documentary. This is, if you like film noir, if you like 40s, 50s cinema, crime films, this belongs in your collection. Almost done. We're winding down here. I'm going to talk about the Ice Pirates. This movie is goofy, but it is a lot of fun. It's got a young Angelica Houston. It's got Robert Urich as like the rakish rogue space pirate kind of a guy. Now, I think if you're going to watch the Ice Pirates, it is important to be aware that Ice Pirates it's a comedy. It's not intended to be taken seriously. It's not. I don't even think it's like camp in the level of like Buck Rogers. I think it's a full-blown comedy meant to be watched, meant to be laughed at. You're supposed to be like, oh man, this is so crazy. And so playing by those rules, this movie is bizarre. It's obviously fueled by Star Wars. Obviously, it's got a little bit of Mad Max in it as well. It comes from 1984, so you can imagine 80s. I don't know if I want to say exploitation, but it's clearly chasing those other trends. And I really like it. I think it really walks that line between comedy while also being cool enough to stand on its own with... I miss scoundrels in movies. I don't think we get enough scoundrels anymore. We have Johnny Depp as Captain Jack in the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, but that's still kind of played for kids. Robert Urich in this movie is so scoundrelly, looking out for number one. He's Han Solo. It's the Han Solo kind of a thing, and even Han Solo isn't Han Solo anymore. So I like the Ice Pirates quite a bit for that. Now let's talk about a couple of new, like brand new releases, like Cleopatra Jones. Okay, this just came out a couple of weeks. It's about a month ago as I'm recording this, but this is new from Warner Archive. Cleopatra Jones obviously is one of the more famous blaxploitation movies of the 70s. It's 1973, and there's a review for this right now at serialatmidnight.com, where I go fully in depth on this, talk about where it came from, what it is. Just admire the cover art. This is representative of the movie that this is. There's a crazy car chase scene that takes place about halfway through this movie. It is impressive, you guys. She always drives a Corvette. That's kind of the thing. It's like she's got the coolest stuff. It's kind of like a Lady James Bond, blaxploitation style. And so Cleopatra Jones works for the government as she's like on an anti-drug task force kind of a thing. And we meet her, she's blowing up a poppy field, literally blowing it up. But she comes back to her neighborhood and finds out that drugs have taken over the old neighborhood. So she kind of wages a one-woman war against the drug trafficking of her hometown. And she's driving around the Corvette. She's wearing the coolest fashions. She's got the funkiest music. The practical stunts in this movie are fantastic. It's worth watching just for the stunt scene, that driving scene in the middle of the movie. But this is great. I'm so glad that we have Cleopatra Jones on Blu-ray. And now I'm going to end with this one on the blaxploitation tip. You guys, at the time of this video, there's a new Shaft movie hitting theaters in a matter of weeks. And Warner Archive has finally given us the entire Shaft trilogy on Blu-ray. Now, we had Shaft before. This was not a Warner Archive release. The first Shaft was a wide release. You could go into Best Buy and get Shaft on day one. But the other two have just gotten released. I'm recording this video just 2 days ago. These came out 2 days ago. Same day. But Shaft's Big Score and Shaft in Africa. Richard Roundtree as the iconic private investigator John Shaft. What is there to say about the Shaft movies? You know, they say this cat Shaft is a bad mother.
Shut your mouth.
I'm just talking about Shaft.
Then we can dig it.
These movies are fantastic. The music, the vibe. So full disclosure, I watched Shaft last night before I recorded this video. And I love it. It's so good. I connected with it more than I've ever connected with it before. It just comes together so well. Shaft is the movie that blew the bloody doors off. I'm sorry. And it's the one that really brought the threat, you know, because people were very threatened by blaxploitation. The excitement, the everything, the rebellion. Like Shaft, he's only in for himself. Shaft is looking out for Shaft. He's not worried about, making friends with a police chief. He's not worried about making friends with the women in his life. Shaft is looking out for number one, and everything that he does in this movie is to protect Shaft. And that's really interesting. It's kind of the birth. He's not an anti-hero. I would not say Shaft is an anti-hero, because he still has priorities. He's still he's looking out for the neighborhood, but all that is right here. And of course, that super 70s soul music, that Isaac Hayes soundtrack. It is incredible. So we finally have the entire Shaft trilogy on Blu-ray. I had these on DVD, but now I can upgrade. So that's that. We're going to wrap up our look at Warner Archive with that. But Warner Archive has sent us this copy of Horror of Dracula to give to you. So I'm going to say, if you want this, I don't know if this is region locked, so if you are not region A capable, enter at your own risk. I will send this anywhere in the world, but I will say, Do not enter if you can't play Region A DVDs, because I cannot confirm that this is region free. But what I want you to do to win this is just comment in this video and tell me your favorite release from Warner Archive. There's a bunch to choose from. Doesn't have to be Blu-ray. It can be DVD as well. Just tell me your favorite release from Warner Archive. We'll give it 1 week. So the date here at the bottom of this video is when the deadline will be. We'll say midnight on the date. I will randomly select. I'll put all the names in a randomizer and we will select from that. And this will belong to someone. One of you guys will win Horror of Dracula on Blu-ray, which feels good to me because it's Hammer. It's Warner Archive. It's the best. It's the best of all worlds. It's horror. It's 60s. It was 50s. But anyway, that's hopefully best of luck. I wish you the best of luck as you enter this contest. Guys, thanks for hanging out, talking about some Warner Archive. Remember, list your favorite Warner Archive release in the comments below, and we will talk about the cool stuff coming out from this label. So guys, thank you very much for hanging out. I appreciate you so very much. Until next time, I will catch you later.